Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning into Sin's Workshop. So today we're going to be talking about Mayhem by Estelle Laure. I love this book. This book has been labeled as, it has a blend of The Lost Boys and their craft, and you really do see that a lot in here in this novel, especially with the mention of the Frog Bros. I love the Frog Bros. I'm a huge fan of the Lost Boys the Lost Boys movie, the original one. I haven't seen any of the others. And I love that movie, So to see elements from that movie kind of in this novel, it really helps establish the atmosphere. You are establishing this really eerie atmosphere with the story, and I really love that atmosphere because it really sets the tone. It really sets the pacing of the novel. It really sets up everything, this atmosphere, and it does make it intriguing. If you're expecting vampires in this book, sorry, no vampires. But this novel also resembles The Craft. And it does that really strongly. You have this character, Neve. She looks and sounds just like, I mean, from her tone, from her attitude, from the way she dresses, everything about her resembles Nancy. I mean, there's so much of Nancy. If you're a fan of The Craft, you know who Nancy is. When I was reading this book, I was visualizing Nancy. From her corsets, her punk rock look, her goth look. The detailing in her characterization really resembles it a lot. And what's more is she is kind of a witch, She is a witch with her foster brother and foster sister. They've been taken in by Mayhem's aunt, and the Brayburns are sort of like the protectors, the witches of Santa Maria. They are the protectors. They hunt the bad people using magic. It's what they do. And the fact that Mayhem and her mother have not lived in Santa Maria in a long time, so Mayhem doesn't really know anything about the Brayburns, about her ancestors, about her history, or about the magic. It's not until she's escaping with her mom, their abusive situation with her stepfather, that she really comes to terms that there is something magical about her. And you can kind of see some of that tension between her and Neve. Neve is sort of just like, oh yeah, I've got all this power. It really is a Nancy and Sarah kind of dynamic between them. But unlike Nancy and Sarah, they do resolve it. They do maintain their sort of sisterly bond in the end. And there's no epic fights between them. It's more of a character-driven, tension-driven novel. But that's what I liked about it, I loved all the allusions. I loved the atmospheric setting. I loved how the story unveils, ultimately. But what I think is really good about this novel is it's not just the atmosphere. You have a story that you're telling, and it's about Mayhem. She's never really been a Brayburn woman because she's never lived in Santa Maria. She doesn't know anything about her ancestors. Her mother thought she was protecting her from it. She thought she was keeping her safe from it. But in doing so, she sort of cut off a part of herself. She cut off a part of her kind of identity. Because we all kind of learn our identities from our past, from our ancestors, from our history. It's a human need to learn more about the past and to connect to it. And so Brayburn has always kind of felt like this outside girl looking in, and now she's here. She's in this place that loves her because she is a Brayburn woman, because she has this power of protection with this place. And there is a serial killer, girls are going missing. And it's up to Mayhem and her foster cousins to sort of figure it out and stop the killer. Neve takes things a little too far, and that's why there's really like that tension between them, because Neve is somewhat resentful. You can tell she loves Mayhem, of course, but you can see that kind of rubbing tension. She thought she was super special because she discovered the core of the magic all by herself, and she was taken in by the Brayburn woman. So, and she adapted to the magic very well, but the magic was made for Brayburn women, and the fact that Mayhem connects to it so strongly, you can see the resentment between them. Mayhem's able to do things that Neve isn't able to do, so it kind of does create a nice tension, a nice bridge between them. And you really get to see Neve as a character. I really like Neve as a character. I think she's a good kind of foil for Mayhem, because they do balance each other out. She does help Mayhem come to terms with her magic. She does help Mayhem come to terms with her history. She helps Mayhem a lot in learning to love herself. And that's what I love about their dynamic. She helps Mayhem so much, and Mayhem in turn helps her. You can tell Neve has come from a really rough background. We don't really know the extent, but she really does hate men. She hates men who abuse women. She hates men who take advantage of women. So you're kind of, that on some level her past is tied to the abuse of a man. And she was living on the streets, so she really does have this animosity towards men. You don't know why, but you can understand it. Now, I think their dynamic is really well done. The only thing I didn't really like was Jason. His kind of instant animosity towards Mayhem. I wasn't really fond of it. I didn't quite understand it. His younger sister takes such a shine to Mayhem, and I love his younger sister. I mean, she's so wise beyond her years. She's kind of had to grow up really quickly, given the situation with her parents. Something bad happened that landed Jason and his sister in the foster care system. But again, they also found the magic, the pool of water that gives the Brayburn woman their power, and but they're kind of gentler souls. They're kinder souls. I didn't understand his animosity towards her initially. It was really kind of unfounded. You're kind of wondering what the heck is going on. Why does he hate her so much? It's kind of just there for cheap tension. Not really a fan of cheap tension. I get that he's been hurt in the past, but none of that really has anything to do with Mayhem. She's not even she does not in any way resembles the things that have hurt him. It would be one thing if she kind of resembled the people that have hurt him in his life, but she doesn't. So that's why I don't really understand it, and I don't really get it. They do come to terms with one another, and I do like his character growth along with Mayhem's character growth. And I like the growth in the character dynamics. I think they're all really well done. I think it's all richly well done. And I love the storytelling, to be perfectly honest with you. I also love how Mayhem is learning about her history. I love these diary entries, that give his, you're learning about Mayhem's mother, her grandmother, her great-grandmother, the Brayburn woman that started it all. You're learning so much about them. And that's what I think is really interesting about it. Usually, sometimes, when you do diary entries in a novel, you're kind of slowing down the pace, but I don't think it slows down the pace here. I think the pace continues very fluidly because it's Mayhem's journey, ultimately. Yes, there's a side story of a serial killer that she has to catch. And yes, there's a side story of her abusive stepfather, but they all blend in seamlessly together because they all center around Mayhem and her character development, her journey to find her inner strength. So when her stepfather does return, it's sort of a very powerful scene where she finally does what she's never done, and she stands up to him. You know, she was always protected. You know, her mother always took the punches, but, you know, she's kind of had enough, and she's kind of done with it. So the entire novel is just her finding her inner strength, her becoming a stronger person, her figuring things out about herself by connecting to her history, by connecting to her ancestors and their roots, by, you know, being the opposite of Neve while also balancing her out. You know, she's understanding pain. She's understanding other people's pain. She's understanding that if there's something she can do to prevent it, then she should do something to prevent it. She shouldn't just stand idly by, because that does make her as culpable as the people inflicting the abuse. And she comes to terms with that, that she's let her fear govern her way too long. And I love that journey for Mayhem. So, you know, once again, this is Mayhem by Estelle Laure. Pick this novel up if you are a fan of The Lost Boys and The Craft. It's great. It has such a strong atmosphere of both of those elements. You know, it's haunting, it's eerie, it's kind of spooky and witchy at the same time. So it's a really good novel. I recommend buying the book off of bookshop.org, because bookshop.org does send a percentage of all proceeds to local booksellers, and you can even select your local bookstore that you want the money sent to. If money's too tight, which I know for a lot of us it is, go ahead and check out this book from your local library. Libraries are a great resource for the community, and they deserve our support. And please do not forget to support me by liking this podcast and subscribing to my channel. You can also become a supporter on Anchor, which is where I record. There's a link to support me in the description. For 99 cents a month, you can help me make Sin's Workshop podcast even better. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.